so much for having us over to your place, for helping, for all the co-hosts that were helping put this together. We were just talking about that Wegmans event, because this is fun. It was about a year ago, actually, if I remember correctly. And I just put out a message on Facebook. I'm going to be at the Wegmans second floor. If you want to come by, I just went downstairs, bought like a thing of iced tea and a couple cookies, and I thought maybe 5, 6 people would show up. We ended up having, I think, like 60 or 70 people show up, and we had this impromptu town hall in the middle of the Wegmans, which then the manager afterwards told me I should never do again. I've always been careful about stepping back in there to get groceries. But look, I mean, that energy that was there a year ago, it is still with us multiple times bigger now. I mean, it is incredible what energy is out there, from what we talked about, from the Women's March to to this energy that's right here in this room. This is incredible. And what I always tell people is that this energy that's here right now, this energy across this country, this can't just be about 2018. It can't just be about 2020. This just needs to become the new baseline of civic engagement in our country. That this is something that we have to recognize is our way of participating in democracy, not just on election day, but every day. And that's what this is really about. And that's what I'm so honored to be here today. So honored to be to have all of you come out, listen to me, and have a chance to have a conversation. For me, I think some of you have heard me talk about this before. When they ask me why it is that I'm running, and I say I'm running because of that. This is my home. That I'm the one that learned to go sledding over at Laurel Acres Park, just down the road. And that's the same park that I took my 3-year-old to this past winter to teach him how to go sledding. This is my home. It's where I hit my first home run, got my first paycheck at the Barnes & Noble's Cafe at the corner of 70 and 73. Yeah. This is where I'm at. And in fact, I couldn't be happier. It was a place to be able to raise my 2 kids. This is the district that gave my family all that opportunity. I think, I'm the son of immigrants. My father and mother grew up in South Korea through very difficult times. My dad grew up as an orphan. He was in an orphanage as a survivor of polio. My mother grew up in a poor farm family to a single mom. Neither of them thought that they would have any chance in life, any chance to be able to make something of themselves, to be able to not just survive but thrive. But they worked hard, seized every opportunity they could find, and America took a chance on them, brought them in, gave them an education. And my dad, who grew up in an orphanage, ended up getting a PhD in genetics here in the United States. Worked over at a lab over by Cooper Hospital in Camden. Dedicated his whole life to trying to cure cancer and Alzheimer's. And my mother ended up getting a nursing degree and served in the hospital systems here in South Jersey for her entire career. That's what this district, that's what this part of this country gave to us. Gave us our first home that we own. Gave us our first car that we own. Gave me the public school education. Did my entire kindergarten through 12 in the public school systems here in South Jersey, and that education allowed me to dream big, allowed me to become a Rhodes Scholar, allowed me to go and get a PhD in international relations. And when I thought about what I wanted to do with my life, I thought about what my parents did, which is after everything they went through in life, they both ended up choosing jobs that were about helping other people, about serving the community. And there's this line that I just keep thinking about every day, which is they taught me this line that service isn't just a job, it's a way of life. That this isn't just something you do 9 to 5. It's something that is about your fundamental relationships to the people around you, your responsibilities to each other, friends, families, strangers alike. And that was such an important lesson that they taught me that embodied, and shaped the way in which I chose to have my career. So for me, I wanted to continue to serve. I wanted to find a way to live up to what my parents had done. For me, that meant working in government, serving as a national security official, serving as a diplomat. I had the great honor of being able to work out in Afghanistan as an advisor to General Petraeus and General John Allen when they were the 4-star commanders. I worked at the United States Agency for International Development. I worked at the State Department, worked at the Pentagon, and at the end of my time in government, I did 2 years at the White House in the National Security Council as a director for Iraq, helping coordinate the counter-ISIS war for President Obama. These were unbelievable experiences that I had, and I worked under both Republicans and Democrats. I served under both the Bush administration and the Obama administration, because I believe that this country needs to have people, needs to have a steady hand at the wheel, needs to have people who are going to be focused in on the American people. That we can't just have our government taken over by partisan politics. And what I always said was the last place that partisan politics belongs is in our national security. You know, we don't want people in the Situation Room or in the commander's office in Afghanistan making decisions about these critically important issues that can affect people's lives based on polling or what's going to help in an election. That's just not what we need. And as I've gone through this last year and talked to so many people in this district, that same mentality is something that I think about when it comes to healthcare. I think about that when it comes to wages and jobs, when it comes to getting our economy moving. That we need to have a government in Washington that's focused on the people and not just getting caught up in this hyper-partisanship that is corroding our democracy. Mm-hmm. These are real problems, and I think about it every single day. And I moved back here to Jersey after I finished my time in government. I remember actually my very last day in government. I've told this story before, where I had the great honor of being able to walk my family into the Oval Office, introduce my family to the President of the United States, President Barack Obama, all while I was holding my then 4-month-old baby boy in my arms. And it was an incredibly powerful moment for me because I remember watching my mother speechless as she's shaking the hand of the president, and I just remember thinking, after everything my parents have been through in life, to have 3 generations of my family in the Oval Office right then and there with the President of the United States, I just remember thinking, this is America. That I had the great honor of being able to witness the physical manifestation of what the American dream meant for my family right there in that room at that moment. And I took that energy with me back home, moved back here to Jersey, raised my family. So I have a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old, 2 boys. I always say it's a perfect time to run for Congress. It's great. It's really awesome. I enjoy getting woken up at 5 a.m. One thing I have to share though is that this particular weekend is one where family, it reminded me so much what's happening. We're now 78 days out from Election Day, and we're really in the thick of it. We're getting hundreds of thousands of dollars of attack ads dropped on us, and mailers going on, spreading all sorts of lies about us. That we're in the front page news. People are paying more and more attention, and then this weekend I have an opportunity to take a step back because Saturday was our wedding anniversary, which is really wonderful. We got to spend some time just focused on each other, and then yesterday, after a whole day of campaigning, going out there and just knowing full well that we had this battle going on with these attack ads and other things, I came home just in time, 5 minutes before my youngest son took his very first steps. And my iPhone now has no more space left. It took like 1 million videos that I forced my staff to watch earlier. But look, that's what reminds me what we're doing. It reminds me why we're all here together. He's like, we're not here today because we're looking to, we're not here today because of some tribalism where we just, want to make sure one party beats the other. That's not why we're here. We recognize why we're here is because it's about people we love. We're here because we know that what's at stake in Washington, D.C. right now, what's at stake in our government are people's lives. That we see in our own representative someone who is willing to cast that aside. Someone who is willing to put people's lives at risk. The fact that he wasn't just a yes vote on that health care repeal, he wrote it. It's got his name on it, the MacArthur Amendment. Gutted pre-existing condition protections. Protections for people like my father, who's been disabled his whole life as a survivor of polio. People like my baby boy, the 1-year-old who just walked. He's somebody that has continued to struggle with health problems that he had even before he was born. Sick for no fault of his own. I look around and I talk to so many people in both Burlington and Ocean County, and everyone says they either have a pre-existing condition or knows a loved one that has a pre-existing condition. That's what's at stake here. That he was the only member of Congress in New Jersey to vote yes on that tax bill that we know is going to hurt New Jersey families. All the other Republicans voted against it. Said it was going to hurt our state. And he's the lone vote that was there. He was the only member of Congress from New Jersey to co-sponsor that concealed carry reciprocity gun legislation, to vote for that farm bill that was going to take away food assistance to the most needy of Americans, including veterans. This is who he is. That's who he is. He will continue to try to say that he's a moderate, that he's bipartisan. But we see through that now. And what I need is your help to be able to carry that message out there. Because what he is dependent on is he's trying to make this election about anything but his record. That's why he's coming after me and spreading these lies about who I am. That's why he's trying to raise all these other issues that are out there. Because he knows that if this election, that if people in this district go to the polls on November 6th and are thinking about health care, if they know what the MacArthur Amendment was, what it was, the damage it was going to do, he knows that he's in big trouble. That's what this is all about. So we have built one of the strongest campaigns imaginable. I am so proud of what we've been able to build. This thing started a year ago with just me, my cell phone, and my dining room table. I was literally just calling everybody I knew. I was like, hey, we went to middle school together. Do you have $500 for me? And I wasn't sure where this was going to take us. But I met incredible people like Eileen and others who were stepping up and just doing things that they never did before. And look, for me, I never thought that I'd run for Congress. I never did. But I also never thought that I'd have a representative who would make such dangerous actions that would put so many people's lives at risk. So I felt compelled to do something. The way I talk about it is that I felt overwhelmed after what he did on healthcare to the point where I stood up and said, I cannot assume that someone else will stand up and fight on my behalf. I can't assume that someone else will fight my fights for me. So if I have a problem about what my representative is doing, what am I going to do about that? And that's why I'm here today. It's because each and every one of us has that opportunity over the next 78 days to make a huge impact. Get our district on a better path. Get our country on a better path. We all know this, and we need to continue to spread that. This is the single most important election that our district has ever been a part of. Ever. That what happens on November 6th could very well come down to what happens in this district and who wins the New Jersey 3rd Congressional District. And we've seen all these different special elections over the last year. We see how razor thin these margins have been. Razor thin. And I assure you that that's how this district's going to be on November 6th. And we need to make sure that we are all working together. That all of us here in this room have the ability to make that kind of change. If each of you just thinks about who are 20, 25 people that on election day I will call and make sure that they go to the polls. Make sure that they vote. If each of us can find ways to get engaged. Now some of that is about funding this campaign. So if you contribute to this campaign, I appreciate it. Thank you so much. If you haven't, I ask for your consideration on this. And look, I'm not going to assume someone's support. I want to earn it. And I want you to ask me questions. I want us to find that time to be able to talk so I can earn your support. But if you do support us, I ask for your consideration for help. And look, I hate money in politics more than anybody. And I can't stand this, and it's one of the main issues that we need to fix going forward because we recognize just how big of a problem this is. That this isn't just about influence of lobbyists. This isn't just about legislators not having the time to actually legislate. The amount of money in politics, it fundamentally affects the kind of people that step up and run in the first place. This is the big reason why, I wasn't sure where we were going to be a year ago when we were talking about this all, because I was stepping up to run against one of the richest members of Congress. Somebody who got the very first fundraiser from President Trump weeks after that he authored that health care amendment. So for us to be able to stand up and go up against someone like that, it was intimidating. But then I realized that I'm not doing it alone. That we have thousands of people in this district working alongside of each other, and we're all doing our part. The other thing I ask for your consideration is that we are running one of the most event-heavy campaigns in the country. I think many of you come out to my previous events. I do 3 to 6 of these events every single day. We're out there grinding away in living rooms and church basements. But what I can tell you is that that's allowed us to run the kind of campaign that makes us proud, the kind of campaign that I believe is what we need to be able to win this thing. Because when we get people to come and engage with us, and hopefully you feel it too, is that this is our campaign. You know, you have ownership in this. You know, this is a part of how you're going to be able to influence what happens on November 6th and be able to have an impact on the direction that our country takes. So if you are interested in helping co-host a future one, if you want to open up your home, that'd be great. If your home's too messy and you like to mess up someone else's home, we can make those arrangements as well. But you know, this is what we're trying to do. The next 78 days, we're trying to think of everything that we can do. And the way that we talk about it is, let's make this year the year of no regrets. You know, let's make this the year where we put everything on the line. That we think about everything that we're willing to do, financially or with our time, with our talents, to be able to move forward, and so that we can wake up on the day after election days and say, we did everything we could.
And that's why you're our
everything. That's so. You know, this is. There's just so much at stake. So much at stake. I don't have to tell you, you know, what's at stake with this election. But what I can promise you is I'm going to give this everything I got. I'm going to put my all into this. And my family, we're ready for this. We've been ready. We've been working hard over this last year. And I'm going to give this last 78 days everything I got. And I'm asking you to join me. I'm asking for your help. I need you to do the same thing. I need you to give it everything you got. Because that's the only way we're going to be able to pull this off in the end and do something truly amazing, get our country, get our district on a better path. Thank you so much. I'm happy to answer any questions here before I hand it over to my field team.
I have a question.
Yeah, please.
Congressman Kim.
I don't know where it is. Yeah.
That sounds great. That sounds nice. Love that.
What's your stand on renewable energy?
Yeah, well, this is critically important for us. Renewable energy has to be the future of energy in this country. It's incredibly important. I mean, this is one of the aspects. I mean, this district, you know, we felt the full force of climate change. You know, Superstorm Sandy took a huge hit on this district. There's still a lot of people out in Ocean County still haven't been able to go back to their homes. And seeing what this administration is doing in terms of pulling us out from the Paris Climate Agreement, from taking all these steps like opening up the possibility of offshore drilling in the Atlantic and the Pacific, these are things that, you know, we're extremely worried about. And you know, it's sad to say that we're at a state where, as someone running for office, I now have to say I believe in science, I believe in facts, and because that differentiates me from other people. So here's what I'll say: is that we know the scientific consensus on problems that we face as a globe on climate change. Renewable energies is not just a nice to have; it's necessary. And we need to be moving our country in that direction as quickly as possible. Now, what I'll also say is that this is something that doesn't just make sense from a security standpoint and in terms of our future, but it's also one that has a lot of great economic incentives, that we need to become and continue to be innovators and leaders in the global economy. And right now, we're allowing other countries to leapfrog us in renewable energy technology. And that's going to be something that sets us back tremendously. So, you know, these are the types of steps that we need to make sure that we push forward on, and we do it responsibly, and we do it urgently, because so much depends on it. Yeah,
First the story, then the question.
Yeah.
Earlier in the summer, I was over in Andy's office at 9 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday morning, and Andy showed up with the youngest son in tow. And we went out after an inspiring talk from Andy to do some canvassing, a group of about 9 or 10 of us, and they had come down from North Jersey to do that. Later in the day, I went to a fundraiser, and Andy again had that youngest son in tow. His father-in-law had been in a hospital at that time, and the little guy didn't want to separate. So Andy is finding time through the summer and now to be the father that he aspires to be.
Yeah.
Now, Tom MacArthur is starting his smear campaign
Oh, yeah.
to
Full
paint you.
swing. Yep.
How soon do you feel you need to be on the airways with your campaign to counteract his effort to paint a picture of you that people will get?
Yeah.
Question.
Yeah, I was wondering where you were going, talking about my cute little baby boy. Straight into the attack ad. So, here's what I'll say. First, I'll linger a little bit more on the cute little baby side of it, which is that, look, you know, I'm here because of my kids, you know, and I'll tell you, you know, I was really thankful to be able to see my littlest one take his first steps yesterday. But, you know, I missed a lot of firsts in his life. First time he rolled over, first time he crawled, and, you know, that's been the toughest part of campaigning is being away from the kids. But, you know, I recognize that I'm doing this for them. This is my way of trying to be a good dad, and, you know, things are tough. I mean, you know, I have to rush out of here soon because, you know, we continue to have health problems in my family, and weren't able to get child care, and this is something that a lot of families deal with. You know, this is why we need to be talking about having paid family leave. And we need to make sure that we talk about having paid sick leaves, and that we can talk about ways in which to make child care more accessible for people. You know, that we can have ways to make sure that women are getting the support that they need with maternity care, and then, you know, into the first few months of tending to their child. That we can also make sure that dads are playing the role that they need to play. You know, that these are important aspects that I see on a daily basis with my own family, that I see people struggling with, you know, in so many events. I get asked often, you know, why don't we see a lot of younger families at some of these events? And I say we do have a different events that are geared towards younger families here in this district, but, you know, when we do evening events, it's because they're tending to their kids. They're picking them up from childcare. They're taking care of them. And so to understand these different challenges, the fact that, you know, we're going through this, and you're absolutely right, Ralph, that, you know, it was tough over the summer. My father-in-law spent 2 weeks in the hospital, had 3 surgeries in 2 weeks, at the end of June into July. And it was extremely scary. You know, it was extremely scary, him over at Cooper Hospital and not knowing what's going to happen, but he was also the primary caretaker during the day of our 2 children. So all of a sudden we had, our whole lives were just kind of turned upside down. You know, while I still have all these obligations for the campaign, and my father-in-law is on the ACA. He gets his insurance through the individual marketplace. And, you know, there's just so many problems and so many different aspects of that we have to navigate as well. You know, and it just kind of reminds me just how difficult things are for families. That we live in a time right now where 40% of this country can't handle a $400 emergency. You know, I mean, that's what people are struggling with. I mean, right here in Burlington County and Ocean County, so many people I've talked to say, you know, they're living paycheck to paycheck. They don't have health insurance. They're scared to death that something might happen. You know, and I think that these are the types of things that really remark on how fragile things can be for people, and why it's so important for us to build a society that will be able to help them out. Now I'll move it into the attack ads. Look, I mean, as I said, you know, he's trying to do everything he can to detract away from it, and this is exactly why we've been fighting so hard to build out the resources we need. What I'll tell you is that we are fighting back in every way we can, and that's going to be increasing dramatically very, very soon. This has been, we are blessed to have been able to have so much support from people throughout this district as well as outside of this district. You know, I was just telling a story about how people outside of this district, they, you know, are supporting our campaign coast to coast. And I called them up and I thanked them for their support. And I asked them, you know, why are you supporting this race in South Jersey? You know, do you have family here, or did you drive through the turnpike once or something? And what they say is, I'm supporting you because what Tom MacArthur did on healthcare doesn't just hurt people in New Jersey, it hurts people all over this country. So we were building out the resources to be able to make sure we fight back. This will be the largest, strongest campaign that any Democrat has launched in this district's history. We have now raised over $2.5 million, which is extraordinary. We've outraised Tom MacArthur for over 9 straight months. Now, I don't don't want you to get complacent here. And if you haven't written that check yet, then please still do, because we have a long way to go. We know how deep-pocketed this guy is. We know that he's going to be able to throw in a lot more of his money as he sees he needs. And frankly, he's worried to death. I mean, the one thing I can say is that these attack ads show that they are scared out of their mind. I can tell you that. And that they're very right to be, because the latest poll showed that this was dead even. In fact, we were up 1 point with likely midterm voters, which is extraordinary. We're now fully at toss-up race. So that's what's exciting about this.
All right, we have time for just one more question, and Andy has to head out. So.
Okay, right.
As a congressman, how will you deal with our deteriorating respect in the international scene?
Yeah. This is something that I think about a lot. Just given the work that I've done and the background that I have, I think about it a lot in terms of that one international trip that the president did a couple weeks back, where I lived and worked on a NATO military base in Afghanistan, and we had NATO military partners keeping watch over us at night, protecting me and other Americans on that base. And then for our president to go to a NATO summit and disrespect our closest allies, disrespect this alliance that has been at the fundamental foundation of our security across this country, that the only time that Article 5 of NATO, which is about coming together and fighting back, the only time that's ever been invoked was after September 11th for our defense. And then for him to do that and then go to Helsinki and disgrace our nation.
So what do you plan?
Well, here's what I'll say, is that first and foremost, I want to serve on the House Armed Services Committee. If I have the great honor of being able to represent this district. Our largest employer in this district is the Joint Military Base, McGuire-Dix-Lakehurst. A lot of jobs that depend on this base. A lot of families that are enmeshed in that community. I think that committee would be where I could be able to serve not only the interests of this district, but be able to maximize the effectiveness of my background and my experience in national security. I want to make sure that we can do everything we can, from that position, as well as being an expert in Congress on national security, to be an outspoken about the dangers that this administration has been doing. Things like taking away security clearances for political retribution. I had the great honor of being able to serve and be in many, many meetings in the Situation Room with John Brennan. He is a patriot. He's someone who served his country under both Republicans and Democrats. These are the types of actions that we need to have. We need to have people in leadership, in Congress, in Washington, that can tell the rest of the world that what's happening right now in our country doesn't speak for all of us. That there are many of us that believe that our strength as a country comes from being a global leader that's working closely with our allies. Leaders in Washington that are willing to stand up and say, Canada is not our enemy. Those are the types of actions we need. So on the House Armed Services Committee, as a member of Congress with national security expertise, what I'll assure you is that at every step of the way, when I see this administration taking actions that I disagree with, I think are making us less safe, I will stand up, push back, I will speak as loudly as I can. I will make sure that we as a district can come together and we can talk about these issues. That's why I always promise that I will have an in-person town hall in the district every single month. That we will have all these opportunities to be able to come together and talk to each other about these issues. That's why I also said I'm not going to take a dime of corporate PAC money, is because I want you to know that I'm going to be a representative for you, not for corporate special interests. Yay. And that's how we're going to be able to move this country. I'm unfortunately going to have to take off, but I'll stick around for just a little bit longer. But in the meantime, I wanted to hand it over to my field team to be able to talk about other ways that you can get involved and help out with the campaign.
Is there going to be a debate?
I hope so. Yeah, we had a forum first. It was a Chamber of Commerce event that was closed just to the members. That was the first time that we're up on stage together. I really enjoyed it. I had a good time, and it was fun to see him in panic mode, which was great. And so hopefully we'll be able to have some debates as we get closer into it. But yeah, appreciate it. Thank you so much. I'll come over and chat with you. Yeah.
This election is about Trump.
Yep.
We all know that. There's a big hope that Trump will be impeached. I really urge you to be very I'm assuming you're going to be elected and we're going to have a Democrat Congress. I really urge you to be very careful about impeachment and not bring it about unless the grounds are crystal clear. So clear that a 10-year-old Republican could understand them and agree with them. I feel we're too close to the years just before the American Civil War and the strife and the fissures that indicated. Let me give you a piece of memory you may or may not remember. When Bill Clinton came to Washington, he was followed by a trail of right-wing hatred. Then there came the Monica Lewinsky affair and impeachment. Those of us who supported Clinton felt that impeachment was not about Monica Lewinsky, but was an attempt of the right wing to steal the election that they could not win in the polling place. We can't duplicate that situation. We can't have further fissure in the American electorate. So we've got to be very careful about impeachment. If there's a Democratic House, there are other ways to stop Trump. There's the power of the purse. There's the ability to have an occasional censure. And if the Congress does a good job, to win the election outright in 2020. I feel I can say all these things because I'm 90 years old and I've seen a few things. So thanks for listening.
We absolutely need to make sure that we're focused on the institutions of our democracy. That's something that I've always dedicated my entire career to. You know, the oath that I swore to this country when I was serving was to the Constitution, making sure that we can focus in on what's best for our government, what's best for our nation, and that's certainly how I'll approach. And I think, you know, hopefully what comes across from our conversation today is that, look, I'm a deeply pragmatic person, strategic person when it comes down to it, and what I'm focused on is what's best for this district. And I want to make sure that we're doing this together. That all these big decisions that I'll have to make if I have the honor of being able to serve as your representative, we'll be able to make them together. We'll be able to have that kind of transparency. We'll be able to have that kind of accountability, and that's what's important. And I absolutely would take that job and that role with humility, but also with a tremendous amount of recognizing the responsibilities that come to it. I will not take it lightly. So I absolutely want to make sure that we're careful about every step we make. Thank you.
Hello everybody, I'm Kamel Ash. I'm the constituency organizer here. So I want to talk to you guys a little bit about getting involved with the campaign, right? So one of the biggest ways for us to win, right, in terms of strategy, is to have people out in the field. May that be making calls, may that be canvassing, may that be bringing water bottles to the office, bringing food because we're starving and all of that good stuff, right? So these are the things that you can do to help us, right? So we're in the office all the time, but there are certain things that we cannot do without the help of you. Now, Tom MacArthur may have money, but one thing that Tom MacArthur does not have is the people, right? But we need the people to be behind us. We need the people to be on doors knocking. We need the people to